Well, welcome. So what we're going to do today is actually show you how I made the little icon that is on YouTube that shows up beside all of your comments or even on your main channel. We're going to start off with this Monk's Corner drawing that one of our monks did many years ago. As far as I know, I found it in a collection of paper that was sitting around, and I just took a picture of it with my iPhone. I usually don't do that. I usually just use a scanner. But in this case, I'm going to get rid of the border and redo the text at the bottom. So I'm going to show you how exactly did I get to the final picture that you see on my YouTube channel now. This one. Using a few programs and a little bit of vector and Photoshop. So let's get started. Today we're going to use Photoshop and Inkspace. Inkspace is a free program, and Photoshop obviously is with Adobe, so we have a subscription for them. I think that's the only two programs we'll use for this. I don't think I'll need Illustrator. I think we're going to do it all in Inkspace and Photoshop. Inkspace is like Illustrator. If you're familiar with the other Adobe programs, Illustrator allows you to work with vector. I am choosing Inkspace because it's easier to take a flat image and turn it into vector. So the first thing you want to do is start with the raw image, the one that I showed you before that I used the iPhone to take a picture of. So we're just going to drag and drop it in here and press enter, get it going. So as you can see, there's quite a bit of things going on here. So Magic Wand is my friend. I use it quite a bit to remove things. So I'm going to I won't be speaking during this part. I'm just going to start cleaning it up and speed up the motion, because this will take quite a long time to do. Now at this point, it's a good idea to sharpen the image using different filters and things that are built into Photoshop. One of those is brightness and contrast. As you can see, by changing your brightness, you can change the line's color from that brownish white, if I go too far over to the right, to a nice dark black. And even the contrast can improve on this even more. Hard to see it, but it is. If you see, this is to the left, and if I go straight to the right, you can see, especially under the hand that's on the table, you can see it there. I can also see a little spot right in here under the fingers where the quill touches the table that I've missed. So I'm going to go in and get that now. So here's our finished image. One of the things that I will do, and this will ensure that we don't have any color anywhere, like right there on the side of his habit, there's just a little bit of brown. Let me get rid of that now, and then we'll move on to vectoring this. One trick you can try if you're worried that you have left any color, or should I say any of the old image behind, is to create another layer and then drop your paint bucket, preferably white, unlike this brown I just used. Let's try that again. There we go. And then you can see if you've left any artifacts behind, like this little section here. It's also a good idea to actually click on the right layer before you do your erase. That seems to work better. At least that's what I've come to find using Photoshop. All right, so there we go. Our image is now done. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to vectorize this image. And in Inkspace, it's fairly easy. There's actually an option here, Trace Bitmap. I'm just going to stick with the default. This has been updated, so make sure you're using the latest version to get the settings to look like this. There's multiple scans, and then there's single scans. Single scan will be just fine, and these are the defaults as far as I know, and it seems to be working just fine for me. So I've done it, and you probably notice there's no change. But if you actually click on the image, make sure you have the little arrow cursor key here, move it over, and there you go. We now have two images. So here's the difference. Can you tell which one is a vector image and which one is the bitmap? I can, but to help, let's zoom in and take a quick look. I'm going to pick the bitmap first. If you remember from earlier, you can see the little jagged edges and all the pixelization that's going on in here. But if we now just scoot over, now let's take a look at the vector. You can see here, no matter how far I zoom in, it is nice and smooth. Now that we have this, I'm going to send it back to Photoshop because it's nice and clean, and that's where we're going to start colorizing our image now. So here we are back in Photoshop, and the part that I'm going to use is from this part of the table up. I will use the whole image at some point, but not right now. For now, let's just go ahead and start getting this colorized. Now, before we do that, I like to add some texture to the actual line drawing here. First thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and crop it. And I won't explain too much of this, as this isn't really a tutorial. It's more of just showing you what I did to get this image ready for using on YouTube. Now you may be asking, why don't you just use the paint bucket and fill in all these areas? Well, if you remember earlier, I used the drop shadow on the line image, and if I had used the bucket, the layer that the line art was on wouldn't be able to accept the drop image or the drop shadow properly. And as you can see, as I'm painting in these little sections here, I'm getting a really nice shadow. Granted, the shadow is not realistic, because who would have shadow on the edge of the table like this? But it does add some depth to the image, which is what I wanted. It also keeps me from having to paint in all the shadows in places like where the cloth folds over and the arms and things like that. Granted, I am going to add some more shadows in here because the image itself needs it, as you can see right in here and places in here and here. But look at the face, though. This actually adds quite a bit of depth to the face, and keeps me from having to add things. Just like in the quill here, the feather, you can see it's got a little bit of that drop shadow. So let's go ahead and get that in, and then this image is pretty much done. I will erase the dub for now because that's not going to be part of the final image, but it will appear in some of the other versions of this image. As you can see, another neat effect of having this bottom layer, that is the layer where I've been doing all the painting, when you turn off the line art, you get this really neat image underneath. Now, in my other versions, which I will bring up, this is the second version I've done, it actually looks even better, but this one will look a little bit better once I start painting in a little bit of the shadows and things like that. But you can kind of see how that works. It's kind of like painting by numbers, really, or a coloring book. So this is a neat way, if you're not used to using Photoshop and things like that, is to take line art, turn it into, you don't actually have to do the vector, but you can at least erase the background and then come back in and colorize it like I'm doing. This is the second version I've done, and I will bring in the first version and show you the difference between this version and the other one. This is just a quicker way of doing it by using the drop shadow to fill in a lot of the shadowing, which I had to do by hand. So here is a look at the original one that I did. As you can see, I took a little bit more time, and it's still the same thing. Some colors are slightly different. I really do like the colors on this one better. I took my time and was messing around with different colors, but the main thing is here's what it looks like without the line art. So it's actually quite nice. I'll spend some more time on this later. I probably won't do a video on what I did. As you can see, on this one I extended the cowl slightly, and also did that in the line art version. Otherwise, it's about the same. I added some texture on the table. I made the inkwell a little bit lighter so that the drop shadows would show through. Otherwise, yeah, there you go. So let's zoom out, and you can see the whole image there. So here's the first one, and there's the second. And there's parts about the second that I like better than the first. The drop shadow is actually showing up a lot more on the second version, but I think the contour is a little too much. But yeah, at some point I may come back and update my original one. But there you go. Thanks for watching. God bless.